Welcome to the Myth and Magic Authors Podcast, folklore and fantasy topics aimed at creative storytellers. To write stories and challenge your brain with exciting ideas, delve into these presentations and reflections. See how fantasy realms are based on actual world history, legend, and lore. Study fairy tales, nature fables, and supernaturalism to engage in a jumble of concepts that will trigger your fancy and get you writing imaginatively. Now, here's your host, Neil Mack.
Sarah Humpherys is a teenage writer, 16-year-old. Her favourite genre is dystopian novels, and she loves creating new magical systems and imaginary worlds. And she's written a number of books, several when she was younger, and her most recent is Stone Cold. In a kingdom where emotion is punished by death, Princess Siona is forced into a marriage of alliance to stop a 30-year war, and she must choose between her duty to the kingdom or the boy that she truly loves. Hello.
Hi.
Is it 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock then? There.
It's 7 on a Saturday here.
It's still pretty early for a weekend. So
Yeah.
Well done. Congratulations. Yeah, we're just about getting ready to fall because it's obviously a decent winter here. So it's started to already get dark. Lights are on. But I'm speaking from in west of London. I'm about 7 miles from Windsor Castle on the actual River Thames, in a town which was set up by the Romans in 43 AD. And it's lots of magic and mystery around here, including obviously Windsor Castle just up the way. What about you? Where are you based?
I live in Utah.
Utah.
In United States.
Beautiful
desert place.
Are you near Salt Lake City?
Yeah, I'm about half an hour away from it.
Lovely. Yeah, because you've got some beautiful mountains and scenery there.
Oh, yeah, the mountains, yeah.
And I expect you've got a lot of magic there as well. And there's obviously a link with the indigenous people of America. Do you have any sort of contact or interest in that at all?
I've done research projects about that. I really like history and culture and
yeah,
stuff.
Me too. I think that fantasy writers, we haven't got any choice. I think we've got to actually also be quite interested in real life history because it gives us a dynamo for our imagination. Do you think?
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
That's all right. Anyway, I thought it would be really interesting to talk to you for two reasons, but the most important reason is because I think we're both kind of at least halfway through our NaNoWriMo 2021. And yeah. And so I thought this would be a perfect moment to just talk about NaNoWriMo for a little bit before we talk about your own work and your own fiction, because obviously a lot of people are exactly the same as us. They're either halfway through or they're struggling to get to halfway. So I thought that would be interesting just to talk about some of the things that you've found as maybe becoming difficult or obstacles for you, and your plan as well, how you actually get to write 2,000 words plus a day. So myself, let me just tell you how I am. I'm really pleased with myself. I'm patting myself on the head because I managed to get to 26,600 words yesterday, and I haven't written anything today. I'm going to try to write some after this. What about you? Where are you now?
I am very far behind. I've written about 18,000 words.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I wanted to be higher, but it's really hard.
I was just saying earlier to somebody else that I don't want to think about this too much, but 2,500 words a day is actually more or less implausible. If you think about it, it can't be done. And if you miss one day, like today, I'll say I might write 100 words or whatever, but if you miss one day, that means tomorrow you've got to write 4,500 words. It soon is insurmountable. Having said that, this is the 9th year I've done it and I've not failed yet. And
oh, really?
At least twice I've written over 80,000 words, so it's feasible. I don't know about you, so this is something that I think listeners will be interested in. I don't really finish until the story is finished. I will carry on plodding along. So even though I might go past the 50,000 word, which is the goal, I might go beyond that because I'm interested in finishing the story. How do you do it?
Well, this is the first year I've done it. I'm taking a creative writing class at school. So, and my creative writing teacher is like, "Hey guys, we can do NaNoWriMo this year. That would be cool." It's hard. um, yeah, I just have to sit down and write, and that's difficult because sometimes you're just staring at the blank page and seeing the cursor blink, and you're like, nothing is coming to mind right now. I need inspiration. But I've already watched TV today and listened to music and read, so I probably need to get this done right now.
You're right. NaNoWriMo teaches you, in case you didn't already know, if you're a writer, and you are a writer and you've got a whole load of stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute, that has been published. But unless you didn't already know this, it teaches you that writing is not about sitting at, and I keep saying this to people, it is not about sitting at a keyboard and typing. It's about this. It's about using your brain. And if there is nothing in your brain, it can't go onto the paper. Are you a pantser or are you a plotter? Have you got a bit of a plot that you want to write?
I meticulously plan out all of my plots.
That's brilliant.
95% of my writing process is just the world building and the characters and the plot. And then I write. It takes forever for me to actually start a novel. I want it to be perfect.
Right. That's interesting because that's almost like super planner. If you're doing a challenge, which you've got to finish in 30 days, then you need to keep motoring along, don't you?
When I write novels, sometimes there's this scene that I really don't want to write. Either I don't have any ideas for it, or I just don't want to write it because it's not enjoyable for me. And so sometimes I go to a chapter and then I'm like, this is supposed to happen in this chapter. Maybe 2 lines of the dialogue, next chapter.
That's exactly what I'm so pleased you're telling me that, because that's exactly what I do. I got to a bit, so I'm doing a medieval, you've got a bit of medieval stuff as well. We'll talk about what your project is in a second. I'm doing a castle, it's a story about a castle in medieval times. And so I'm having to learn a bit. I did do a bit of horse riding, and I just run a stables once. So I know a little bit about horses, but I obviously need to know about medieval type horses. And I got to a bit, I thought I just can't write the rest of this because I just haven't got enough knowledge of what I was trying to write about next. The good thing was I could just move on to the next chapter. So I just did exactly the same as you. I just put a sentence inside, and then they rode around a bit. That's all you can do. It's like a marker place. So what are you writing about for? Are you writing an extension of one of your previously written stories? Is this going to be a part of the series?
No, for NaNoWriMo, I'm not. I'm oh boy. I'm actually writing a dark fantasy novel,
Wow.
kind of. Let's see. It's about this desert and this tribe of people who have to like, their culture is that, like, they go out and kill these creatures called Shaitali, and they're like soul-eating vampiric creatures, kind of. And the main character gets kidnapped by one, and he has to escape from her and try to kill her, and stuff like that. It's not really perfect yet, but yeah, that's what I'm writing about, which is funny because I usually write about medieval kingdoms. Like, that's all I write about. But like, I'm in a desert, and I guess I also have to do more research on that because I know how desert life works. Like, I live in Utah, but
You do live near a desert, though, don't you? You have got
yeah,
deserts.
yeah. So, like, mountains, forests. I took some inspiration from just the landscape around me.
Wow, that's well. And when you're doing it for college or for a school situation, is somebody else looking at it as well? So you have to obviously put your words onto NaNoWriMo, but do you have a tutor or is there some kind of other adult who's looking at your work and seeing if you're doing it sensibly? Or do they just leave it to you?
Well, she's kind of just leaving it to us. Besides, like, things like, hey, what's your word count for today? Stuff like
Yeah,
that. But she'll only read some of it until the very end.
yeah. So how many of you are doing it from your, is it a school or college?
It's high school.
High school. So how many people are doing it in your class then?
There are about 30 people in my class.
And how's everybody else doing with it?
Oh, just terribly.
Well, I mean, what you're telling me here is something which obviously everybody kind of guesses in the back of their mind. They think it's so easy and it's not so easy. So there's certainly some negatives and positives of NaNoWriMo. For me, the positive is that you've got, at the end of 30 days, you should have some bit, I'm not saying it's high quality, but you will have an amount of words,
Yeah.
hopefully 50,000.
It's gibberish or something.
Yeah. And then it takes, well, my first ever novel that I wrote was for NaNoWriMo, and it took at least 2 years to edit that. So I've learned to edit as I'm going along as well now. So I don't write utter gibberish anymore. So I do try to write something which is bearing, some kind of sense, but it still takes a while. Good. But you've already been through all of these stages before with your other works, haven't you? So I think we should talk about those. So the one thing that I saw when I was looking through your stuff is Stone Cold. So do you want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. It's a novel that is coming out in January next year. I published it.
And that's about?
It's a medieval kingdom because I write kingdoms. But it's about this kingdom where everyone has to wear enchanted stones that take away emotion. It's a gemstone-based magic system, and they wear these stones and they can't feel emotion, and that's just their culture. But there are some people that the stones don't work on. And those people are considered dangerous to society, and they're hunted down and killed. And, well, the main character is the princess of this kingdom, and she happens to be one of those people that the stones don't work on. So she has to, hide herself and pretend to be emotionless, and it's just her story of trying to find peace with her situation, because she has to pretend to be emotionless all the time, but she still has to feel things and be social and survive psychologically in a way, not just burn out. And her brother is the crown prince, and the inciting incident is that her brother dies, and so she has to be the crown heir. Now everyone's looking at her even more, and there's a war going on, and with the marriage alliance and just all this stuff that's happening to this poor protagonist.
Is she an orphan?
She has her father, who's the king, but her mother died, so she's not orphan, but she doesn't really have any parental figure to talk to in a way.
Right. Yeah. But she has sort of love for secret love for a boy, yeah.
Yeah, it's a romance novel. There's a love triangle, if you call it that.
I love it. I like the idea that you have to hide your emotions. Because we do the opposite. Authors, we do the opposite of hiding our emotions. We have to actually literally tell everybody our emotions. If you're a very poetic writer, you tell even more emotions. If you're kind of non-fiction writer, you probably don't spend so much time telling emotions. But we do open our heart and let everybody see, don't we?
Yeah.
So what kind of books and novelists inspired that particular story? Is anybody that you would like to sort of say was kind of an influence or impression on you?
Well, a lot of dystopian novels, if you know what that genre is, deal with the people not having emotions. So I thought that I'd take a society in Delirium or The Giver, and put it in a medieval kingdom, because I do medieval kingdoms. And I had a lot of fun with it. It was cool.
I bet. Would you like to live in a kingdom? Because I do live in a kingdom.
I guess you do.
Well, I don't know whether it's much different to living in a republic, but
it's so cool. You're in Europe with all the kingdoms and castles and
yeah, that's for definite, sure. Yeah, and living here, because I'm living so close to where she is at Windsor Castle, you really get that feeling. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that. So are you 16 now?
I'm 17.
17, because it says 16 on your stuff, but I thought it might be just a bit late.
Sorry, I'm 17.
So when you're 17 in England, you're allowed to drive a car, but you're not allowed to go and drink alcohol, liquor, but you're allowed to write a book. So what about you? What's the situation in Utah? What can you do when you're 17?
Well, you can drive a car and you can't drink.
You can?
Well, I can't remember. I think it's 21.
Yeah.
like alcohol. But yeah, you can write a book, I guess, if you have the courage to.
If you have the courage. So you got published at 16.
Hmm. Yeah.
So tell us about that. What was it like, and how did you get to that point?
Well, it was kind of on accident in a way. I didn't want it per se, because my dad came out to me and was like, "Hey, there's this writing program led by a New York Times bestselling author, and her students every year are taught how to write books, and it'll be really cool." And I didn't want to go to the initial meeting, and well, they'll have food there, and I'm like, "Oh, for food, I'll totally go." But I went, and I found out that she teaches us how to write books with an online program that she has, and at the end of it, we're able to pitch our manuscripts to agents that she personally knows. So I was like, oh, I might have to do this now because that's cool. So for 6 months, 2019, I think, I went through this writing program, and we had lessons and homework, and we all had to write novels during that program. And it was really funny because she was like, "Okay, you have to have an idea for a novel and start writing it in like 2 weeks." And I'm like, "Oh, dang it! I can't just be told to be creative. It doesn't work." But I did come up with an idea, and that was stone cold. So I just wrote the book for 6 months, and like met with the other students and went through that. And at the very end, near January of 2020, I went to the event called the Crucible, where we pitched to agents. And she calls it the Crucible because it's a crucible. She's she's like, "Okay, guys, this is this is pretend that this is the audition for your life, because it is."
Whoa, no pressure.
But I ended up pitching to 3 agents, and all 3 of them wanted my book, but one of them did
Wow.
a full manuscript request. So I thought, oh, that one's a lot better. That's cool. So I'll send it in to him. And I ended up editing the book over the summer, and then I sent it in. And I was expecting him to say no, because all of the authors that I know have been like, it's just rejection email after rejection email.
Exactly.
You have to have skin. You have to like wade through it. Like Stephen King, like 12-inch spike for his rejection letters. That's what I was expecting. But he didn't say no. He said, "I think you have something cool here. I'll talk to the higher ups and then get back. I look forward to talking with you." And I'm like, he didn't say no. But yeah, so a couple days later, he called me and was like, "Hey, we're going to send you a contract because they liked your book, and you're going to get published." And that was cool. My dad heard me screaming throughout the house.
Wow. So who's the publishing contract with? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, it's Morgan James Publishing.
Thank you.
I think you just did an episode with an author who was published by Morgan James.
Right. Oh, that's good. Well, that's handy. That makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah, sure.
That's really interesting. I mean, that is fantastic, because so many people struggle through the whole of their life to do it. And I don't for a second think you had an easy, by the sound of it, it sounded quite awful, really. Very anxious. Yeah. But at least you've got that bit out of the way. You know what I mean? That was like, right, you can move aside from that now and just carry on with writing, which I think is really, really a fantastic achievement. So congratulations on that. Really, really well done.
Thanks.
So let's have a quick look. So I was looking at the some other books here: Wings of the Fae, Fallen Gods, Crystal Hearts, and Soul Eaters. Are all those since then, or were they part of the journey into authorhood?
Oh boy. So those are my other unnamed projects. They're supposed to be unnamed. My dad got the stupid titles off my website. Those aren't the titles.
Okay.
My friend came up with the title Stone Cold, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I'll use that. I can't name stuff, but those are my other projects that I'm working on. Well, I have them completely plotted out in a Google Drive document. I just haven't started writing them.
Right. So the only thing that you've fully completed, in as much as it's a thing that we started and then completely finished and is ready to go, is Stone Cold. Is that right?
Well, I have written a dragon book.
Okay.
It's about dragons that keep humans as slaves, and the humans have to rebel against the dragons and also help the other dragon species that have almost gone extinct. I love
Sounds right.
dragons. Dragons are my favorite thing ever.
Me too. I used to think that two dragons lived under the stairs when I was about 5 years old. And I haven't changed my mind. I'm pretty sure they still do. Luckily, I live in a country, you don't, do you? But I live in a country which has dragons, because in Wales, they have red dragons there. There's certain places around the world where dragons are pretty much there, right in front of you. I went to Poland recently, and I went to a castle there, and they've got a dragon which lives under in a cave there. And every now and again, about once every hour and a half, it sticks its head out to have a look, have a look round. Everybody knows it's there. It's called a Warwell dragon. And to me, what is fiction and what is real? But yeah, so have you ever seen a dragon?
No, I haven't. Only in my imagination.
But in your imagination, you're able to describe them pretty accurately, I imagine.
Oh, yes, definitely. In my imagination, dragons are everywhere.
That's fantastic. So you talked a little bit earlier about world building, and obviously that's a top thing to be able to achieve when you're writing fantasy fiction and dystopian fiction. So what are your sort of main tips for anybody who's listening there? Maybe they're on the NaNoWriMo, they're halfway through, and they're struggling with their world building. What tips would you give anybody who's listening now, would you say is some of the best things to do?
Well, I usually do kingdoms, and it's just really helpful to do research on the actual power structure hierarchy of kingdoms. Like who is the person in power? Why are they in power? And like the kingdom specifically, like what's their culture? What binds the people together? Like what do they import and export? What are the people doing? It's really intricate because you have to think about like a civilization of people and what supports them and what they do and just develop an entire culture. And so you can totally draw from real world sources to do that and just research, just Google stuff. that that's about it for world building. You just have to think about I don't know, draw from real life because I mean, if you want to create a setting, then you just look up images for that, or because everything that you make in a fictional world has to be real at some point. It has to be drawn from real sources because it has to be real to those characters.
Yeah.
And like if you're world building like a magic system or something, then that magic has to be defined by rules and that has to be integrated into their society because everything is governed by rules in world building. It has to make sense because it has to feel real, like this society actually exists.
Yeah. So you kind of need to put on your special hat, your thinking hat for history, geography, commerce, all those sort of things. Yeah. Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Something can't come out of nowhere. It has to be, has to be a reason behind everything.
Yeah.
So how do you keep a note of all those things? Have you got I've got can you see it there? My whiteboard. Do you keep whiteboards and things, or do you put it on Scrivener? How are you keeping hold of all that information?
I just have a document on my computer with just pages and pages and pages of this is this kingdom and this is what they're like and stuff like that.
Well, I expect most of it's up here, isn't it? Because you're very good at learning stuff and memorizing stuff.
Yeah. My both of my friends are writers too, and they are artists. I'm not an artist, but they're artists, and so they have boards like in their room, and they have chalk and they just draw out their kingdom, and that's cool and probably a bit better than just writing everything.
But you are an artist because you're an artist with words. You may not use paintbrush, but you use colors and textures that are found in words. So that is your way of so how you actually make your if you like initial drawings, your sketches is with words.
You could say that.
So what's going to happen next then? So when is Stone Cold out?
I think it's out January 20 something.
Okay, that's very good.
I can't remember the release date of my own book.
How could people find out when it's out? Have you done a pre-launch or anything like that?
No, I have not. But it's available for pre-order basically anywhere you can buy a book.
Okay, cool. And where would you like people to go to get that, to pre-order it?
Oh, I don't know. You can try Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. You can buy the ebook on it. It's just anywhere. I don't care. You can, but the ebook's out now, so you can buy the ebook.
Oh, that's good. And so, what else have you got planned then? What's your other projects at the moment? So, if you finish this, the thing you're working on now with NaNoWriMo, I take it that will, if like me, it'll be about a year before it comes out. Would you say?
Sure, if I ever finish it.
But what else? What other projects are you working on?
Well, I'm working on the sequel to Stone Cold.
Stone Cold.
Which is really hard because as an author, your newest idea is always your best idea.
Exactly.
So you always want to go on to other stuff. You never finish anything. But I need to finish the sequel so the story can be complete.
So you can be complete as well. So you can actually rest.
So I'm working on that, yeah.
How would you describe being an author? I would describe it as kind of solitary confinement with because I'm allowed to drink alcohol and also drink loads of coffee. I doubt it would be a good idea for you to do that. So, but alcohol and coffee sustained self-isolation is how I describe it. But how would you describe it?
Well, I saw a t-shirt once that said, "I'm an author. I get the voices in my head to work for me."
That's good. That's good. It's kind of admitting that we are a little bit
because we have to constantly spend
but
time
in a nice way. Yeah. So do you have a kind of writing routine? A lot of people say, oh yes, I'll get up and I write 45 minutes before I go for my run or whatever. Do you have that kind of life?
Well, I actually write in my closet.
Oh, right.
I have a closet space with blankets and pillows, and I go in there and I shut the door. And since it's all dark, I can imagine myself in another place. So I write in my closet, and I usually have my phone and I have headphones, and I have a music playlist, and I usually play the songs on that playlist that match the emotion of the scene. So
that's good.
So I can like get into the mood and what I'm trying to write.
I like that. That's a really good idea. What music have you found to go with deserts?
Well, not really deserts, but more like certain actions that people do, like trying to escape, doing a revolution, fighting, stuff like that. I have like 20 songs that are like, here's the song. If you're an heir who wants to take back your kingdom from an evil force.
Right. So it's kind of a theme song. Or how they would do it in an opera. They would have a theme tune for a particular character when the character comes out.
Yeah, something like that.
So what else are you doing other than writing? So you must obviously really, really concentrating on writing during the NaNoWriMo month, but the rest of the time, are you interested in any other? I always ask this of young writers. Are you interested in anything else?
I like to play Dungeons and Dragons, if you know what that is.
Yeah, I know. I saw you're a bit of an expert at that.
My friends got me into that, so I like playing it. It's fun.
I think it's it's a really good and very useful way to get into the whole fantasy concept and thinking outside of four walls. Yeah. And do you do any exercise at all?
No. I just sit in front of my computer all day and let my main characters fight. Does that count as
fight dragon?
Yep.
And what about any science and mathematics? Have you done any of that at all?
Yeah, I like science a lot, biology, learning about animals and stuff like that. It's useful for my book because I know a lot about nature. So
yeah, I mean, people don't realize. I think in the olden days, certainly in Tudor times, they used to keep writers. The kings and queens used to keep writers hanging about the place. Every single castle would have a resident writer. They wasn't so they could write stuff down, although that helped. It was because writers knew about everything else, didn't they? Because to be a writer, you have to know about everything. You can move from dragons to cars and guns. I mean, never look at a writer's search history, because we've got some terrible things in our search history.
Oh my gosh. It's like, what is the most efficient way to stab someone?
Exactly. Should I stab them in the jugular, or should I stab them in the hip? Good. And so when you leave high school, you'll go to college, will you, and study English?
I don't really know what I'm going to study. Probably English, but I could go further into science and like marine biology, microbiology, stuff like that, because I still love stuff like that. I love psychology and forensics. I watch murder mysteries a lot.
So you could be a murder writer soon. You'll do thrillers.
Yeah, sure.
Next. Yeah. Have your parents got any sort of like link to that sort of world, science or criminology or anything?
No, not really. But both of them like watching murder mysteries too.
Yeah,
so.
Everybody likes that. And what about brothers and sisters? Have you got any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have a twin brother and then a younger brother.
All right. What's your twin brother think of you being a published author?
I'm not sure if he. I don't know. I don't. Because he's really into math.
Oh, is he? So he's going to be a whiz kid.
Yeah, he's a very logical person. I think he wants to be like a particle physicist or something.
Wow. So you go off to MIT or Caltech.
Yeah, that's what he's planning. So it's funny because Johnny's always doing math and I hate math so much. Very logical, and whenever he's watching TV, he's like, oh, I can come up with a way better plan of action for that character. What are they doing? So, and then I'm just off in my world with dragons and fireballs and magic and stuff.
Yeah, because we have to do emotion. We can't just keep doing logical things. We have to, because emotion is illogical anyway, isn't it? As you found out.
Yeah, it is. But there has been a couple times when Johnny, that's his name, when he's like, hey, Sarah, someone came up to me and asked if I was author's brother. So that's really funny. But a lot of people at school know me as the published author, and so Johnny is just like, why are people calling me that?
People will say, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm an author. First thing they always say is, oh, I've ever heard of you, which is really annoying. They always say, well, I'm not Neil Gaiman, because we both share the same first name. I'm not Neil Armstrong. So it's likely that you haven't heard of me. The second question, if they could be bothered, they often just walk away. But the second question they always say is, can I get your book from the local bookstore? And the answer is yes, you can, if you know the ISBN number. But in their head, they're thinking that it's going to be in the front window, don't they? They actually think it's going to be on display. So I always think to myself, they're very disappointed when they actually meet the actual real author. And I think that's... everybody's got this huge expectation of what it's like to meet an author. And when they meet the author, it comes a bit of a surprise to them. And of course, all your friends, they all know a published author. So they can all say, oh, yes, I know. I suppose it's nice for them to be able to say that. But it doesn't stop the fact that we're still here struggling to write 50,000 words in 30 days, aren't we?
Yeah.
So would your publisher and your agent expect you to deliver another book within the next 12 months?
I'm not sure actually. But the book hasn't been released yet, so it's sort of just kind of slow, and maybe they're waiting to see if it'll be received well, and then they'll have a sequel. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm still gonna write the sequel because the story needs to be completed anyway.
Yeah. And what would you like a reader to take away? What would you like a reader to say? If you could write your own review, what would you like them to write?
On my book,
Yeah.
just it was good.
It wasn't great. It was good.
I just
You don't want them to say, "This has changed my life. My life is now 100%."
No, I'm satisfied with it was good. maybe my bar is too low.
When you look at the Amazon, I mean, it's nice when people actually bother to actually write something. Yeah, they might say something like "great" or "bro" or whatever, but normally they just put the star rating in, don't they? And I always think, well, if that's all they can manage, it makes you realise why we are so valuable, as because we at least can write some words. They can't even write that. They just click the star rating. You just hope that they're going to click 4 or 5, you know, and that will do. Well, congratulations on everything you've done so far, and really, I would like to have cheered you on, but I realise I'm not allowed to cheer you on because you're a college NaNoWriMo person. I didn't even know that before. But next year, whenever it is, you're allowed to actually join the real NaNoWriMo. We can follow each other, because it's really good, because you can see the people you're following. You can see where they actually are, because you can.
Oh.
So on Twitter, obviously they can say something like, "Oh, I'm doing really well. I'm doing really, 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 really well." But on NaNoWriMo, I think it says 4%. It says you've done 2,000 words.
Police your friends.
You can't hide it. Yeah. So we'll have to do that in years to come. I'm going to definitely get your book, and I want to follow you. So where would be best to follow you personally? So say, for example, I want to find out what you're doing this week, sort of thing. Is there some way to do that?
Well, I have Facebook, but I don't post on it. Not really.
What about Instagram? Do you do that?
Well, yeah, I have Instagram too, but I'm not really into social media.
Okay.
Very much.
How would a person keep in contact with you? Go to your website.
You could go to my website.
Oh, you're on Goodreads, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on Goodreads too.
Okay, so they could follow, because the people who listen to this podcast are very much Goodreads people. So they could follow you on Goodreads, and that's at Sarah Humpherys, which is Sarah Humpherys, which is Humpherys.
Yep.
In Utah.
It's.
And what about your website? What's the address for that, please?
Just myname.com.
So exactly the same, with no gaps in it, at .com. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. How would you feel about coming back next year, about at the same time, and then seeing how, because by then all the book will be published, and you'll have all the 5-star reviews up. Yeah. You'll probably be a New York bestseller by then.
Oh, hopefully. Very much hopefully.
Would you come back and tell us how you're getting on and what it's like after a year of being an author?
Sure.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Well, in the meantime, have a lovely rest of your day. What have you got planned for today?
I'm probably going to write more. It's fall, so the leaves are falling, and we have to rake the entire backyard. So I'm probably going to do that today.
Okay. Well, good luck with everything else. Good luck with the rest of your writing this final 2 weeks, and also good luck with your launch next year. And brilliant. Congratulations. Lovely to chat to you.
Thank you.
See you soon. Keep it coming. Bye.